It's 6 o'clock, and I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole meeting on January 13th, 2026 to order. Attendance, all counselors except Counselor Bob Morton are in attendance. I haven't heard from him, so could be just running a few minutes late, so we'll wait on him. Okay, council, approval of the agenda, including additions or deletions. Does anyone have anything they want to delete or try to add? Seeing none, then the agenda will be approved as circulated. Declaration of conflict of interest. Does anyone have any conflict of interest on anything on the agenda this evening? Seeing no lights, we're going to move on to announcements. I have a couple to start with. West Hants Regional Municipality, it is in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This land is governed by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki, known as Nova Scotia, for over 400 years. And as its committee of the whole, and we will have some public participation later on, I just want to remind everyone, this council committee and I, as the chair, are committed to ensuring this meeting and its participants conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner as outlined in the municipality's municipal code of conduct. Meeting presenters, staff, and the public are expected to conduct themselves in an equally respectful manner at all times the meeting is being conducted. I thank you all in advance for your commitment to these important meeting principles. So saying all that, welcome back. It's our first official meeting after the holiday break, so we're all ready to start and get going. But first of all, does anyone have any announcements? Mayor Zabian.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Just to let everybody know that the Newport Junior Titans, I think Junior C, are having their annual All-Star game this Saturday at the GFL rink in Brooklyn. 3 p.m. is the start time. It's a great show and highlighting all the players for their league. Also, Long Pond Heritage Classic is next Saturday, the 24th, 1 p.m. Great show every year that they do put it on, and so all welcome to that. It's absolutely free to come out on the Saturday and view all the games and the festivities. And the District 8 Town Hall meeting next Wednesday, the 21st, 6 p.m. Hansport.
Perfect. That's a lot going on. Councillor Bob Morton and I had our town hall meeting on Thursday evening. It was well attended. Really enjoyed the questions. Councillor Remy, Mayor Zabian, and Councillor Paul Morton attended as well, and want to appreciate everyone that came out. And it was great conversation. So really looking forward to these town halls. I know I'm looking for another one along with Councillor Larry Pinch, hopefully in February for the Vaughan area. So stay tuned for more dates coming. So great. Anyone else with any other announcements? Seeing none, we will move on. Approval of previous meeting minutes, 2025-1202 Committee of the Whole minutes. Was there any questions or anything on the minutes that were circulated? If not, we will accept them as circulated. Okay, everyone's good. We have two presentations this evening. We are going to start first with Region 6 2026-27 budget approval, includes a motion, and we welcome back Christine McClare from Region 6 Regional Coordinator.
So thank you, Council, for allowing me the opportunity to come in this evening and talk about the Region 6 budget. There was quite a lengthy document that was sent along explaining kind of where the money comes from in Region 6. So we've jumped right ahead. I won't go through all the background information. You've had that, and certainly able to answer any questions that you may have. Just want to hit a few of the highlights. And so we're starting off, we've jumped way down to page 16. So just hitting some of the highlights. So the revenue coming in. So we've got a total budget of 825,883. And so we've got some money that comes in from contracts with Divert Nova Scotia, which helps to offset the cost of myself, the Region 6 educator, and some enforcement funds, stewardship incentives, dairy diversion, municipal approved programs. These are monies that are coming in. And then the municipal units within Region 6 make up the difference between our revenue and our expenses. So that total amount to be paid out by the units this year is 147,885. So if we can move on to the next slide or the rest of the page. So I think we have lower portion of, yep, there we go. So just going down through some of our expenses. So operations comes to 156,659. The education portion, including the Region 6 waste app, comes in at 121,967. And if we slide down a little further, then we get into the payments to units. So all the units within Region 6 receive some money's just passed through the Region 6 office, like diversion credits. It just comes through our office and straight back to the municipal units. So the payments that we'll be making out this year are estimated conservatively at 555,622. If we do receive any extra funds that come in, if diversion numbers are higher than what we anticipated, that money just simply passes through and goes straight back to the units. So not anything that we keep on hand or we distribute directly back out. So we had a surplus of $8,365. So basically the difference between the revenue and the surplus is the amount that is asked from the Region 6 units. So based on population, if we slide down a little bit further, we'll see the West Hants portion for that is $31,258.41. So just to kind of put it in some tangible terms, that means basically you are asked to pay with that $31,000 that equates to about $1.60 per person. And the funding that you'll get is $6.03 for a net income of $4.43 per person net gain. Again, conservatively, that number may be substantially higher, but I always want to go conservative in what we promise. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to say. There's I guess I should mention on dairy. Our dairy funding has been decreasing. And that's because the funding that we get for fluid milk, so milk cartons, is paid by the dairy industry. And they pay for what is actually marketed. So what is collected and then goes out to market. So one sorting facility, the one in Queens, has been unable to make it to market. So their materials have been stockpiled. So once they make it to market, then they'll get the funding. That doesn't affect West Hants and what you've been doing, just the total amount of funding coming in. We're really not seeing any funding coming in from the Shelburne County municipal units. So you'll still get your money, but yeah, they're kind of on hold. So that's really all I had. Open for questions.
Thank you, Christine. Council, do you have any questions for Christine on the presentation? Councillor Ivey.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, thanks, Christine, for the information. Just one question on the last point that you made. There was the Atlantic Dairy Council. and their involvement. And I think I saw a notation there that the arrangement with them came to conclusion in December. So what does that mean going forward? Will it be renewed, or it's concluded and that's it?
It will be concluded in their payments directly to you because they will now be participating in the extended producer responsibility program that everybody is now paying into. So they'll be paying into that fund. So while you don't receive direct monies from them, they're paying into the program, which pays for your recycling, collection, and processing. So essentially, you won't have to spend money looking after their products anymore.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation. But council, before we do move along, there is a motion. Mayor Zabian.
I'll make it, Chair. Committee of the Whole recommends council approve the Region 6 Intermunicipal Committee budget of $834,248 with $147,885 due from the Region 6 municipal units and the West Hants Regional Municipality portion as $31,258.41 due in quarterly payments.
Made by, seconded by Councillor Paul Morton. Okay, you got to vote before I saw it. Okay, so just so we know, Committee of the Whole recommends council approve the Region 6 Intermunicipal Committee budget of $834,248 with $147,885 due from the Region 6 municipal units and the West Hants Regional Municipality portion as $31,258.41 due in quarterly payments. So Clerk Snare, if you could put that up for a vote, please. Motion carried. Thank you much. Thank you very much. Have a good night, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move right along through our second presentation, the Valley Regional Enterprise Network, VREN Marketing Levy. And we have Vanessa Roberts and Geneva Allen Heron from VREN Tourism Strategy Manager.
I'd also like to introduce that here with us tonight are Emily Boucher, who's the CEO for the Valley Ren, and we also have Matt Sweet, who's the general manager of the Super 8 here.
Okay, perfect.
So before you is a follow-up to our report that was submitted to Committee of the Whole in December, and council had supplied some questions that they'd like to have us answer. But to the report itself, we've added a few more things, and I'll just draw some highlights. So just going back a little bit, so West Hants staff and their tourism operators here in the region, they have participated in the process that has gotten us here today. And that is through consultation with the STAR program, and even today where we have the Transitional Implementation Working Committee. So myself and we have Colette O'Hara from August House, as well as Tasha Reed from Avondale, who sit on that committee as well. Right now, what we do know is that moving forward with a marketing levy will not have any direct financial impact on our West Hants residents or businesses. And so I guess I also want to sort of highlight, and this is on page 6 of my report, if anybody wants to follow along. We had a lot of comments that came in about Airbnb. And so I just think it's interesting that Airbnb itself does in other districts across Canada collects not only the goods and services tax and the harmonized sales tax, but also in some provinces and municipalities, they also collect a tourism levy. So this isn't anything new for the Airbnbs. So the financial implications, we talked about that. So the collection and remittance of a marketing levy would require staff resources during the initial setup phase, followed by ongoing administration and compliance. The final destination marketing management organization model selected will actually determine what the level of financial support is going to be and the involvement from West Hants Regional Municipality and the associated impact on staff and capacity. And as far as the enforcement piece that we had discussed as well, the levy, we're not sure yet until we get through this whole process how that enforcement piece is going to happen. And it may be something as similar to what we do with the Valley Waste. And so again, we're in a very interesting time. It's the chicken and the egg. What comes first? Setting up the DMO, getting the tax levy all sorted out. These things are going hand in hand. And so we'll do the best that we can to answer any of your questions. And as well, we had also in the report attached are all of the questions, and Genevieve spent so much time putting together the answers to that. So I'm going to turn it over to her because she's going to be the best person to answer those questions.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you for having me back. It hasn't been long since I saw everybody. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. And thank you so much for submitting those questions. They were really good questions, and I hope I was able to answer them. I do also want to cover them in the presentation, so I have a shorter presentation for you today. But before I launch into that, there's just a couple of things I want to touch on. First is just a little reminder of the history of the project. This is a continuation of the work that started in 2020. We went through 2.5 years of tourism strategy process. This took an enormous amount of consultations. There were 27 in-person consultations and an online survey with 150 responses. And a recommendation that came out of that tourism strategy was that we need an industry-led organization like we've had before, and we haven't for over 10 years, that is leading our tourism sector in the region. Once that strategy was finished, there really was no organization to implement the strategy. So Valley Run took on that work for another 2 years, with the intention that when we were finished, we would hopefully have a structure in place where industry then could continue on that work. So this is kind of like an exit strategy for the Valley Wren. And so that's what led us to where we are today. We really need to figure out what is a sustainable funding model for this organization and how can we move forward collaboratively with other municipalities. There was also a point last year where I did consultations with specifically accommodation operators to see, is a marketing levy a viable funding model? And from those consultations, we did find that there was enough of an appetite for that among accommodation operators to keep moving forward. Now, I don't want to gloss this over. There was some opposition. Most of that opposition came from short-term rental operators, those that are on platforms like Airbnb and VRBO. And a lot of the feedback that we got from them is we get marketing through these platforms. We don't need marketing, like regional destination marketing. But we did collate their concerns, and there are some valid concerns, and I don't want to dismiss them, but those were all collated in a What We Heard report. And that report is public information, and so that can be found on our website. Deanna linked that to the YouTube, is that the intro on this meeting. So if you just go to that site, you can see where that What We Heard report is. And that outlines all of the concerns that we heard from operators during those consultations. So our job is to then put those concerns down in a way that kind of distills them into common pain points, and then see how we might be able to address some of those concerns. So that's what we've been working on since those consultations. As an example, one of the biggest concerns is the administrative burden that this might put on sole proprietors. And so our recommendation to address that is to use a third-party platform that really simplifies the process of remitting a marketing levy. And we are recommending a quarterly remittance. So this only has to be done 4 times a year. And it can be done through this online portal where you just put in how many nights you sold, what the rates were, whether there were any exemptions, and then they calculate the amount for you, and then you can just remit through that portal. So I just want to outline that. I also want to mention a couple things that we are working on. One of the things that came out of the STAR strategy is that in order to know what we need or what we want, we kind of need to know what we don't have. And so we are working on a tourism infrastructure and services gaps analysis. We have hired a consulting firm, 21 FSP, and we'll be working on that over the next 6 months. And we're working closely with municipalities on that. So that looks at the gap between what visitors expect and what we are currently offering. And then we are looking at the region through a visitor lens and analyzing that visitor journey. So we're looking at things like wayfinding, beach access, accessibility, transportation and connectivity, visitor amenities. So this will allow us to see where clusters are, where gaps are, where opportunities are. And then we'll get a report from 21 FSP, and it won't just say, hey, this is what you need, but it will also match it with some opportunities and recommendations and ways that we might be able to leverage funding to address some of these needs. So that's one thing that we're working on. I also want to mention that we have an event on Tuesday, January 27th at the Mermaid Theater. I just had the opportunity to visit their newly renovated space, and it is unreal. You have such a wonderful cultural asset in your community. And if you haven't had an opportunity to see the renovated space, this is an event that's open to the public from 5 to 7. It's a tourism networking event. And what we do is we open the floor up to anyone who wants to share what's happening in the tourism sector so that we all have a greater awareness of what's happening in our region. So please do come by. It's going to be a great event. Oh, and we're partnering with Cherry Tree Distillery, so there will be some sample mocktails and cocktails there as well. Okay, so one of the biggest questions we got was about authority and governance structure. So I just... Oh, sorry about that. Can you share my screen? Oh. I can if you just tell me how. Right now. It's gonna get there. This is you, right? Thank you. There you go. Wonderful. Thanks. All right. I just want to make it really clear that the authority on how to spend a marketing levy when collected sits with the municipality. So it would function a lot like, I imagine, how your business improvement district functions. I'm making some assumptions because I worked for the Kentville business community and their bid in Kentville. And what they did was the municipality would collect the commercial levy and on behalf of the bid, and then they would grant that to the bid. But there were some safeguards in place. The bid had to ensure that it was meeting its objectives and its mandate, and it would have to report annually to the council. And if the council ever felt like they were not doing their job properly, then they could withhold those funds from the bid. It would work the same way for a DMMO. So you would collect the marketing levy, and then you have the authority how to grant that to the DMMO. You also have the authority to say whether you wanted to hold some money back from the marketing levy. So we actually built into our budget administration fees. So if you wanted to hold back a bit of an admin fee, then you can. The other thing is we are recommending a third-party platform, and that will cost a little bit of money. So you may want to hold back some money from the levy to pay for that platform. And then there would be a board of directors for the DMMO, and we're recommending a nonprofit society structure. And then we have a recommendation based on consultations and existing models here before you. So it's a mix of sectoral representation, municipal representation, cultural representation, and then having 2 non-voting ex officios at the table, Valley Rent and ACOA, to give kind of a broader scope of economic development. So we would want to ensure that each municipality feels represented and is at that table. So we recommended someone from West Hants be there, as well as your director of the Windsor Township, so currently Karen. But ultimately, this is a recommendation. So it doesn't have to look like this, but this is what we have seen a lot of DMMOs do. And in talking with many of them, this is kind of the most successful thing that we've seen. Another question that we received was, how would it be staffed? Realistically, in the first year of collection, when you implement the levy, you can't implement it for business that's already on the books. So say we implemented this in January 2027, but there's already some bookings for that summer. You can't go back to those customers that made bookings and ask them for the levy. So in the first year of operation, the collection is going to be lower than the subsequent years. So you may have to scale up for staffing. You may just start with an executive director in the first year, and then in the next year, you may have enough to hire somebody else. We recommend a marketing strategist, but ultimately it would be up to the board what they would like to do. And we look at Truro and Colchester as a really great example because we're pretty much 2 years behind what they are doing. They did it in a little bit of an different order. They implemented their marketing levy first, and then they did their STAR strategy. And now they've established their DMMO. But in their first year of operations, they're just working with an executive director, and then they're hoping to scale up as collection rates increase. We also received a question about where it would be located. And so I do want to make it clear that this is not a visitor information center. This work can be done behind the scenes. It's not public facing. So it could be done anywhere. Obviously, low cost shared office space would be ideal in the first few years. Okay, and this is all, again, in the funding model report. So this shouldn't be new information to you. But if we were all to work together across municipal lines, so Annapolis and Kings and West Hants, then there is a potential for about 700,000 for a levy. So we are really encouraging this cross-municipal approach, because that means if we pool our resources, we could stretch it way further and do a lot more with it. In our first year budget, we based it on 70% remittance rate. It does take some time to get up to that 100% remittance rate. But again, we're talking to Truro and Colchester, and after a year of collecting the levy, they're now at 97% remittance rate with their operators. We are recommending a hybrid funding model, a marketing levy plus membership fees. And this addresses some of the concerns that we heard during consultations, which is, why is this just on the backs of accommodation operators? There should be buy-in from other operators too. And that is why we said, okay, that makes sense. Then we can introduce this membership model as well. But if we just did it with membership model, we probably could only get about $40,000, and that is not enough to run a DMMO. Okay, so
The DMMO would have a service agreement with municipalities that outlines roles, expectations, and key performance indicators. I already mentioned that we recommend that we adopt a third-party collection platform. We recommend using ORMA. We've talked to municipalities that use ORMA and have had really good success with them. They've been doing it for years in Ontario. Now they're breaking into the East Coast market. And when it comes to enforcement, we really want to emphasize that initial focus on education and compliance support. So if someone is not remitting, having a phone call, having an in-person meeting, and just respecting that process for everybody and the different pace for everybody. That is what Truro and Colchester did, and they've had a lot of success with that. And we would really only want to engage bylaw officers when necessary. And of course, the marketing levy bylaw includes provisions that allow the municipality to intervene when remittances are not happening. I think that may be it. Okay, there was a question about where is this working? So I do have a couple examples. We've had a lot of discussions with this destination Cape Breton. In 2024, they recorded its second highest number of room nights sold in history. Tourism revenues on the island have grown by 30% over the 2019 pre-pandemic levels. And approximately 88% of Destination Cape Breton's budget now comes from a marketing levy. And each dollar spent on marketing has estimated to generate 27 in direct visitor spending. And here's a quote from a short-term rental operator that I was able to speak with. They say they're great believers in the we over me approach and wholly believe that a regional direction to tourism benefits all parties involved. Halifax, I know this is not rural context, but it is worth noting that Discover Halifax marked a record-setting year with a 2.6 increase in 2024 and an 11.4% gain since 2019. They helped support strong bids for major events like 2024 Juno Awards and Pickleball Canada. And 88% of residents feel that tourism industry's impact is positive or very positive. We have Truro Colchester that just established their DMMO. They are really emphasizing events there. They have a regional complex, so they're able to attract events. I think this could be a big opportunity for us as well. And I spoke with an accommodation operator there, and she said she's had 5,000 visitors to Seek, which is that accommodation in Victoria Park this year, and not one guest has complained or brought up the levy. So that was in the first year of implementation of the levy. And we've got Yarmouth and Acadia Shores Tourism. They worked to get infrastructure built on their wharf to allow more cruise ships to come this past year. And spoke with someone who said our marketing dollar goes farther through YASTA. Shared creative and access to their data mean we reach priority markets as a region and not just as isolated businesses. Marketing the region works because visitors travel based on experiences and interests, not municipal lines. Okay, that's it for my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Great, thank you. Vanessa, did you have something to follow?
Well, I also wanted to mention that there were 3 letters that were circulated to council earlier today. And so one was from our Avon Chamber of Commerce, the other from Ski Martok, and of course, Super 8 Motel. So they all support the economic impact level of tourism here. Believe that we need to do this to level the playing field, and that it's a good way to support small business while creating that destination development project that we need here.
Okay, and all those letters were submitted to all councilors, so we all have had them this afternoon. So I will open it up, council, to any questions for Geneva or for Vanessa. Councilor Larry Pinch.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So you had mentioned that for like Airbnb, that there is past precedent that they've collected the marketing levy and submitted it on behalf. So that would take the work away from those short-term rentals for having to use the form or
Forma.
Forma.
Yeah.
So yes, there is that possibility. I will caution you though, what happens is when Airbnb collects it, then they give it to the municipality as a lump sum. So it's impossible for the municipality to then determine who it is that remitted and who didn't. So some municipalities have opted not to go that route and to just have the Airbnb operators remit through their portal.
Great. Follow up?
I do have one more, if that's
Sure,
okay,
yeah.
through you, Chair. So I know that based on the survey, you said you've heard from some short-term rentals. These were their concerns. Is there any way of knowing how many of those short-term rentals that you heard from or that you communicated with that were specifically in West Ham?
It's tough to give you those numbers because the online surveys we did were anonymous. I do have some numbers here. I did a calculation of how many rooms you have in West Hants, and based on the information that I was able to find through Tourism Nova Scotia data and through AirDNA data, which basically scrapes the internet for any online booking platforms, I was able to calculate 164 rooms. And of those 164 rooms, we heard from 89 that were represented. So I will say that in the 89 rooms that were represented in consultations, we heard from some of your largest accommodation owners. So for instance, Super 8 is 66 rooms. So they're like 35% of your rooms in West Hants.
Okay, great. Mayor Zabian?
Yeah, just a few questions on my end. Do you find that short-term rentals will deregister if a levy comes into effect? Have you found that in other areas or?
It's so hard to say. I mean, I haven't heard of that from the levy, but I have heard about that when there were the new regulations that were implemented, but I can't really speak to that.
What you say a third party platform to do remittances for the levy, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have a rough cost what that would be or?
I can send that to you. I do. It's something like, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll send you
that's
that
fine after the
information.
fact.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
like a tiny percentage on what they bring in.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the presentation, you were saying if 3 municipalities had signed up for it, Annapolis, Kings, West Hants, it would generate, I forget the number was,
700,000.
700
Yeah.
approximately. Do we expect all municipal units from West Hants down to Annapolis to sign up, or you're saying you're only looking at maybe the 3 larger ones as
Yeah,
opposed to
it's
the smaller
certainly
ones, or?
certainly the dream that all of them do. Annapolis County has already implemented a marketing levy. Kings, we're working with the municipal working group with Kings, Berwick, Wolfville, West Hants, Middleton, and Glooscap. Kings is getting the wheels in motion. And they're really hoping that everyone will move forward kind of at the same pace with an aligned approach to this. I will say that there have been some regions where not all municipalities were on at first, but then some municipalities that were kind of decided not to do it came on board later. And one example of that is in Cape Breton. Inverness decided not to do a marketing levy. And a year after the DMMO was established, they said, okay, we see the value in this. And then they hopped on. So that may happen here. But what we're really hoping is that we get strong leadership from the counties, so West Hants and Kings and Annapolis, to move this forward.
Okay, and then just one question more, Chair. You were talking about the membership model and how it brings in others who wouldn't be are in a hotel or a short-term rental and other tourism accommodation providers. What would be the incentive of somebody joining the model if it's already taking place, the dollars are already coming in, the marketing is already happening? What's the incentive for somebody to say, okay, I'm going to collect this fee now as well? Like, what's the incentive?
Yeah. So we would have different tiers of membership benefits. And I want to also make clear that accommodation operators would get the top tier of those benefits because they are doing this remittance. But for other operators, they would obviously still be in the guidebook, for instance, but they may not be part of an ad campaign, or perhaps they wouldn't get social media attention, or there would be certain things that they could get if they bought into a membership model. And that could start at a very basic level and work up.
And when Genevieve mentioned about the guidebook, we have not had a tourism guidebook in the Annapolis Valley since Destination Southwest Nova stopped. So, again, those are the types of things, in my opinion, that you would have, like if you are accommodations, your rate would be at a lower level than somebody who's not paying into the marketing levy, and they would pay a higher fee. Much like our, any sort of advertising campaign that we do, we have contracts with different agencies. And so whether it's, living local or radio, so there's all sorts of different levels of buy-in.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess a couple of questions, and either of you can answer. I guess the number one question is, and the information that I've got from you in the past points to the fact that the short-term rental owners, the single property owners, are probably the highest resistance to this. And so my question is, what's the alternative for them? If they don't want to be a member of this, how do they not be a member? Do you have alternatives?
I mean, if we implement an accommodation levy, they are an accommodation. Accommodation levy is applied to all fixed roof accommodation that's registered as a tourism accommodation in the province.
And that goes back to the provincial bill that gives municipalities the right to put this levy on in each area.
So it sounds like the key is the registration,
Yes,
right? The registration with the province.
yes.
Right.
And the province does require a registration. They have to be registered to rent.
Right. Okay. My other question is around the cost to the municipality, and that comes back to the cost to the taxpayers. So you talked about using some of the funds to cover the cost of work that the municipality does to collect the funds or to manage the funds, and you spoke about a bylaw officer having to do some work, once in a while maybe. I read the Colchester example, and it mentioned the municipality several times. So my question is, how will the municipality recoup those funds? Like, I know there will be municipal staff that need to do some of this work. So would there be like an FTE equivalent designated for the municipality and paid for to 3%, or is it just going to be kind of a trial and error approach and see how much time is spent doing this work? Or
I guess I would maybe ask for the CAO or comments on that, because I guess what we have learned from like Colchester and Cumberland is that after the first year, they're up to over 90% remittance.
But that wasn't without a cost.
Yes.
And I'll be transparent with you. What they did was in their first year of collecting the levy, they did use some of those levy funds to hire someone part-time to be a levy coordinator. And they were the ones going out and having those conversations with operators. And then they scaled that back to 2 days a week. And then they're hoping to scale that back down to 1 day a week. But there is that cost associated. And so that would probably come out of the levy if we decide to go that route.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Now in Yasta, in Yarmouth, they don't have a levy coordinator. The DMMO does a lot of that relationship building with operators and those phone calls with operators. So it depends on which approach we want to take.
my fear is that municipal resources are going to be tied up implementing and managing the collection and the rules around this.
Yeah, and that's what they wanted to avoid at Truro Colchester, which is why they hired someone part-time So that is an option, or you could download it onto the DMMO to do that work.
Okay. All right. And the last question is, say the $700,000 that's collected, would that be distributed or spent proportionally in the different areas, or would it be sort of in a melting pot?
Yeah, so I guess that's where representation comes in. And that's a really important piece and something that came out of consultations too. Like we want to make sure if we're on the Hands Shore and we're paying into this, that we see Hands Shore represented in the ad campaigns and on social media and in the guidebook. So yes, that we would try to be as proportionate as possible. Also knowing that leaning into our heavy hitters is a good way to draw people into a destination, but also part of what a DMMO does is try to work to spread the visitors out and get them to the hidden gems that people don't really know about and have a hard time marketing themselves because they have no marketing dollars to do so. And I think of Tasha Reed at the Heritage Museum, the Avon Heritage Museum. I mean, they have hardly any marketing budget, but how wonderful would it be if they could see themselves in an ad campaign? So we would try to get people out to those spots in our region that people just don't really know about.
And certainly when we were working through STAR, we had Richard Innes here. We took him to every nook and cranny in, along the Hants Shore and down along the Bay of Fundy. We were places that most of us didn't even know existed. So, and he was just absolutely blown away and said that these are the types of things that the visitor wants to see, they want to experience. We know that tourists want to do more than just go and watch TV in a room. They really want to get out there and be immersed in the communities and see what's going on.
And they want to know about those hidden gems.
Yes.
Well, thank you. That's all very good information. It's great. Thanks.
I
CAO.
just wanted to comment on STAR strategy. I mean, you have to kind of self-identify with some of the priorities in there, which experiential tourism in the Minas Basin. So, the striper bass community that we are evolving here in West Hants, and there's these experiential. This is not just about theme parks and ski hills, of which we have, but there's this experiential component, which I think I would assume is part of the strategy and part of the priorities that we'll focus on. So we are rich in some of those experiences, not to say we'll get the lion's share of the promotion, but as we think about the things that we have to offer, the West Hants should be highlighted.
Okay, Councillor Larry Pinch.
Thank you, through your chair. So just sort of curiosity, because you said there would be membership tiers, and I live in an area that has a lot of short-term rentals. And so looking from their perspective, if they're using a platform, they're getting their marketing based on the platform. They're usually run by people as an aside. It's not their day job. So the remittance, though it may be a half hour, an hour, is kind of an extra task that they have to keep track of, that then they have to put through. So they would be in the top tier membership you suggested based on accommodation. So what are they receiving from that?
Yeah. So Magdalen Islands is a really good example of how you can actually go to their DMMO site and see all of the available bookings, including things like Airbnbs, and it might actually take away the need to be on things like booking.com and some of these platforms that charge pretty high fees to book through. And by the way, just so you know, the best way to book is book direct. Don't book through booking.com because they will take sometimes like 15%. So actually, Matt, 20. Okay. Yeah. So there's that, but so what was the question? Sorry, getting back to what's the incentive for them?
For the small independent.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So also representation. So we have in our governance structure that someone who is a short-term rental operator be on the board so that there's representation there. Because another thing we heard during consultations is we want to be recognized as legitimate part of this sector. And they are 100%, and they should have that recognition. And so having representation and being at the table is really important. And then they would also have access to things like training and professional development and networking opportunities. Anything that the other operators have access to, they would have access to.
Plus also too, we are going to be, pooling our resources to bring, help with, marketing events and our facilities and all of that kind of stuff. And so, those that pay should sort of get the first kick at the can for accommodations and stuff for, rentals and stuff when these events come to our communities. But, we need to market the region as a whole.
Okay, we'll kind of wrap this up here shortly. Mayor Zavian?
Just one final point on the event on the 27th you had mentioned. This group has a meeting that night at 6 p.m. So most likely you may see a couple of us for maybe 10 minutes.
Sure.
If it's 5 to 7, just didn't want anybody to think
Yeah.
that
If you have
from West End's council showed up
for 10 minutes.
There's a reason that would be the case though.
Thank
Just
you.
one, yeah.
Counselor Ivy?
Thank you, Chair. I had I think 2 points here that I just wanted to touch on. One, and I don't know that I got the title right, but I think you said within the Yarmouth area they have a service coordinator or that.
Their executive director?
Well,
Truro Colchester, they had a levy coordinator.
Right.
Yes.
And so I guess from that standpoint, because there was a reference here to bylaw enforcement being a part of that, which to me, I think I'd lean towards a levy coordinator or a sales marketing type more for arranging, get people on board with it. And for those that aren't, it just sounds like a different task to me when you reference bylaw enforcement. One, there's the use of staff for that purpose. And two, there's, a focus of attention that's a little bit different. I think I'm not looking to categorize, but it just seems to me to be the approach that may be the better one. The other thing that I'll say, and I am fundamentally supportive of this. I actually happen to be when the STAR program was first being discussed was following that really quite closely. But I am conscious of the fact, and it's not easy to find out, those that are in short-term rentals that do some of those performance-based booking fees, and whether it's Airbnb or whether it's booking.com, and how they all do it with their piece of the credit card fee and the service and so on, that while it's not a cost directly to the owner, it is a cost that gets imputed into the rate, which for some people can be a deciding factor. Not everybody, but for some. And I'm just conscious of that fact that it is an add-on, that instead of it being 200 a night with HST that gets added on, and I know that the fee goes in before that, but it is an added cost that we want to be conscious of, that it's still marketable for the agencies. 3%, it sounds fair, but for those that are that their day-to-day is based on having people booked in, and when they go to bed at night, if they've got nobody booked in, then they haven't made any money that day, that I think it's important to be aware of that. Thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions, Counselor? Seeing no other questions, so thank you, Geneva and Vanessa, for the presentation and answering all the questions that were thrown at you. There is no motion, but there were options, so I'm not sure if council wants to deal with these options now or wait for another discussion on it. Counselor Remy.
I am 100% in favor of this. I've seen, I too was part of the STAR program, and it was here and see the benefits of regional tourism. I do understand that there, through the short-term rentals and those types of things, there are fees, but there's also some really great examples of how that time is mitigated. And with the information that we were given, I think that they responded to all of the questions and concerns that we brought forward at the original presentation that they had done last year. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember what month. Anyway, I would like to put a motion on the table. I think that in order to move this forward, if we are going to or not going to, or at least know what's happening
we should be at the table for the decisions that are happening. And if King's, is already thinking it, and I know that some of the other municipal partners are as well, yeah, we could really, I'm going to put a motion on the table if that's
Did-
okay.
Do you want me to, I see Counselor Janish's light is on. Do you want to put the motion on first or do we want
can
to
wait.
hear? It's up to you. We'll hear. Counselor Janish?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. When I saw this on the agenda, I saw it as an information report. And I thought that there would be new information, and I want the opportunity to discuss that with some of the operators in my district. So I think it would be premature to vote on a motion tonight.
Okay. Counselor Remy, I'll give you back the floor if you so wish.
Yeah, it's just going to be a recommendation to council. So,
And just
am
for
still-
council, there were 3 options that our CAO had put in the back as well. So I'll let you decide what you would like to do.
I'm going to put the recommendation on the table. I'm going to make a recommendation that council support the implementation of the marketing levy in principle, pending additional information or support from other municipal units.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Bonnie Smith. Is there any discussion on the motion before we put it to a vote? Counselor Ivy.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I would just look within the motion and looking at them in advance of coming here. And I thought that the one that wasn't here was simply, support in principle without any conditions attached. But are we looking for additional information to come back as part of this? Can we just determine if we expect something based on A, additional information, and B, support from the other units? Are those the conditions that we want to see?
Thank you for that. Actually, I would like to amend that a little bit because as I was reading, I was like, oh, that's not what I meant at all. I don't think that we need any additional information. So I apologize for that. I think it's literally like if with the support of the other municipalities, I think it, it kind of balances the risk with it. And anyway, so yes, whoever seconded that motion, I would like to make that amendment that is just with the support of the other municipal units, not for additional information. Sorry about that.
So I'm going to read what I think and then we'll go to the seconder to see if, the council support Committee of the Whole recommends to council to support the implementation of the marketing levy in principle, pending support from other municipal units. That's the motion. Are you good with that as a seconder, Counselor Smith? Okay, so now that is the motion that's on the floor. Is there any for Counselor Ivy?
Okay, so knowing that that's the motion, I'll put a follow-up question similar. I think there's 6 municipal units. Is that what we had for a total in the Annapolis Valley? Was it more? But we've heard of 3 here this evening. So are we pending support from all, or is it pending support from, just to be clear, so
The motion was read as support from other municipal units. And this is just in principle. I would assume that council will have to come back and
Okay.
CAO, is that how you this is just in principle, then council would have to come back to really.
Not to speak for the mover, but yes, I mean, there would be an agreement that you would have to review and finalize and confirm that you're comfortable with that. And perhaps that part of the exercise would formalize your position
Thank you.
when and if that comes forward.
Okay, and you're good with that, Counselor Remy? Counselor Ivy, are
That's
you good
fine.
with that?
Thank you. Yep.
So again, the motion is for Committee of the Whole to recommend to council to support the implementation of the marketing levy in principle, pending support from other municipal units. Are we all clear on that motion? If not, we're all good. Mayor Zabian, you're
Yeah, I understand the motion 100%.
perfect. Okay.
I just don't think I can support it as it's stated. That was the only thing I was contemplating, but okay.
Any other Counselor Remy?
Yeah, I guess maybe we needed more discussion, or maybe I needed to think through. I would literally read the recommendation that was in the report. So maybe it's just, accepting it in principle. I apologize that I put the motion on the table without like thoroughly thinking this through. I just think that this is an opportunity for us to be able to move forward with this and recognizing all the benefits that our region would have with the regional marketing. Yeah, I just think delaying it for what, right? Like there's been loads of consultation with, they've been working on this for a year and a half, 2 years now. I think any of the questions that we had asked were responded to. There's been loads of opportunity. They've given us their information for us to be able to reach out to them. Yeah, so maybe it's just in principle, period. Maybe that's where I leave the motion. And again, I apologize because I know I'm being super rambly with this, but it's just, I would like to see it move forward.
I'm just looking for direction. Right now, we have a motion on the floor that is Committee of the Whole recommends to council to support the implementation of the marketing levy in principle pending support from other municipal units. That is the motion that's on the floor. You're good with that, Clerk Snare? That is the motion that is on the floor?
Madam Chair, it's your motion.
Okay, now just making sure we're on the same page. Okay, so seeing no more lights, I'm gonna ask Clerk Snare to put that up for a vote. So is everyone clear on the motion? I can read it for another time if. Motion is passed. There are 5 nays. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So we will be moving along to 8 unfinished business postponed motions. 8A is visual effects study of existing and proposed wind energy projects information report. Acting Director Fougere, and there is a small presentation and I will let Director Fougere take over.
Yes, thank you, Jared. Just while we're getting the presentation set up there, tonight we have Jacob Albury and Jeff Benjamin, who is joining us online. You can see it there. From Dillon Consulting Limited to present the results and findings of the visual effects study. So in 2024, Council gave direction to staff to conduct a visual effects study based on existing and proposed wind farms in the Vaughan and Upper Vaughan areas, and further approved the award of the project to Dillon Consulting in February 2025. So I'm going to pass it over to Jacob and Jeff for their presentation, and we'll be happy to take questions on the presentation or my report thereafter.
Thanks, Carrie. Our key objective with this project was to assess the potential cumulative visual and shadow flicker impacts of 3 wind energy projects. The first being South Canoe, which is operational, the approved Benjamin Mills project, and the proposed Bear Lake project. Our analysis comprised of 3 main parts. The first being a view shed analysis. So we're trying to find out where turbines can potentially be seen from and how many. We did a shadow flicker analysis to understand where and how much shadow flicker could be experienced. And we did visual renderings to see what these turbines could look like on the landscape. We modeled 2 different scenarios for analysis. The first being a so-called worst case scenario. So this assumes a bare earth landscape. So there's no vegetation. It's essentially a bald earth. This scenario also assumes constant sunshine. So the sun is always shining during daylight hours. We also did a more realistic scenario. So this introduces vegetation obstruction back into the model, as well as applies historical sunshine data. So for the first piece of the analysis, the view shed analysis, Our purpose was to see how many turbines are potentially visible and where are these locations. So we took a conservative approach to identifying the structures with potential visibility. So this includes all of the buildings within our study area from the Nova Scotia building database. So this would include commercial, residential properties or buildings, as well as sheds or garages. So again, just a conservative measure for any visibility within the study area. Based on the worst case, so this bare earth scenario, we identified approximately 4,000 or over 4,000 buildings that could potentially see one or more turbines. And when vegetation is applied to this scenario, this is reduced by about half. So over 2,000 buildings have the potential to see one or more turbines. The next piece of the analysis is the shadow flicker analysis. So for shadow flicker, we're operating under the regulatory environment that states that shadow flicker must not exceed 30 hours per year or 30 minutes per day at any dwelling, as per the Municipal Government Act. Based on our modeled results, both Benjamin Mills and South Canoe are not expected to exceed those regulatory thresholds. Bear Lake could exceed both 30 hours per year and 30 minutes per day of shadow flicker in the worst case bare earth scenario. So again, there's no vegetation, the sun is always shining. When we apply vegetation obstruction and historical sunshine hours or data back into the model, Bear Lake is not expected to exceed the regulatory environment. The question of cumulative shadow flicker. So with a location experiencing shadow flicker from more than one project at one time, based on our modeling, this is not expected. They're simply just too far apart. So the distance between each project exceeds measurable shadow flicker. So what's shown on the slide here and these black lines is essentially the shadow flicker extent. And as you can see, there's no intersection or overlap between the projects. We completed visual renderings using 15 viewpoint locations. Essentially what this means is we visit locations, take photos in the direction of the wind turbine projects. We did this based on some selection criteria. So the first being visiting locations with the high potential for visibility. This is guided by our viewshed analysis. They have to be publicly accessible so we can actually go and visit them. And we also visited a few locations that based on our models were expected or could receive shadow flicker. These photographs and visual renderings, they're captured under clear skies just for maximum visibility. So the first rendering that I'm presenting here is an example of cumulative project visibility. So this rendering presents a scene on looking south towards the Bear Lake and Benjamin Mills projects from Castle Frederick Road, Upper Falmouth. You can see turbines from Benjamin Mills, phase 2, in this scene, as well as in the distance, there are turbines visible from or modeled to be visible from Bear Lake. The second cumulative rendering presents a view looking south towards Bear Lake and Benjamin Mills. So this was taken just off of Highway 14 in Upper Falmouth. You can see turbines from phase 2 of the Benjamin Mills project, as well as, again, Bear Lake turbines in the distance that are probably not that easy to see here. They're a minor feature in the landscape on this one, just due to the proximity or distance. Vegetation obstruction is a common theme throughout our report and then for these visual renderings as well. This is an example. This was taken off of Highway 14 in Upper Vaughan, looking at or towards the Bear Lake project. There is it's partial visibility of a turbine, so we can see a turbine blade, but otherwise, based on the rendering, the other turbines would be obscured by vegetation at this location. The next three renderings are taken from one location. It was a private residence on Wall Settlement Road in Wall Settlement. The landowner invited us up to take these photographs and produce these renderings from their property. So this first rendering is looking towards South Canoe. So it's actually not a rendering at all. It's a photo because these are what the turbines look like today from this person's property. The next photo or rendering rather is looking southeast towards the Bear Lake project where you can see these are visible. There's several turbines that are rendered to be visible here. And from the same property, looking northwest towards the Benjamin Mills project in red, those are turbines that are partially visible from the phase 1 of Benjamin Mills. And the darker blue are partial blade visibility from renderings of the phase 2 Benjamin Mills project. So to summarize our key findings, when vegetation and historical sunshine data is applied, we do not anticipate shadow flicker to exceed regulations at any of the projects. We don't expect cumulative shadow flicker based on the distance between the projects. Topography and vegetation limit cumulative project visibility. But as you saw in the last location, there is potential for visibility of multiple projects at locations with unobstructed sightlines. That concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jacob, for that. Council, do you have any questions for either Jacob or Jeff is online as well? So seeing no lights. So thank you very much for the presentation. And have a good evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, council, we'll move right along to 8B, Mill Lake Diversion Pipe Tender Award Recommendation Report, and Project Engineer Boutier is going to take over. Oh, sorry.
Good evening to the chair and members of council. I have 3 reports this evening. The first one being a contract award for the Mill Lakes diversion pipe. A little bit of background. This project was included as a priority in the current year's capital budget. In the fall of 2024, the outlet control structure at the Mill Lakes Earthen Dam became blocked, and you can see it in the photo there. Attempts were made to remove the blockage, but they were not successful. And in subsequent field analysis between staff and consultants, they indicated that the control structure has failed, basically through an internal collapse. The fall of 2024 saw low lake levels that resulted in the water level dropping below the overflow level. So with the control structure blocked and the lake level below the overflow level, there was no water flowing from the lake to the wastewater treatment plant. As an emergency response to the situation, a temporary pumping system was installed, and you can see the pumps actually set up in that picture. So that system allowed the water to basically be pumped over the earthen dam and into Falls Brook so that the water supply could be adequately maintained. And the pumping system was removed when the lake level returned to normal levels. But the same scenario repeated itself in the summer and fall of last year. So the scope of this project is basically a new lake inlet intake, new piping. It would be an 18-inch HDPE pipe sized for the long-term growth of the water utility. And it would also allow for increased flow control through 2 different valve chambers. So this drawing shows the project overview. You can see that the new pipe will kind of go to the left of the earthen dam and then around it, and it will allow the water to end up in the same place into Fall Brook. This project is critical to supply the required flows from Mill Lakes to the Windsor Water Treatment Plant for the water utility, as well as ecological maintenance flows through Fall Brook. And that's a requirement of the permit through environment. The design work for this project was completed over the last year by CBCL, and the project was tendered in December. We received 5 tender submissions for the construction services, and they were reviewed for mathematical checks and compliance by engineering staff. Gary Parker Excavating is the low bidder for this project, and their submission was fully compliant with the tender requirements. They have significant experience with similar projects within West Hants Regional Municipality, as well as across the province, and they are therefore being recommended to council for award of this project. In terms of the financial impact, there's a chart on the screen that is also in the agenda package. So it shows Gary Parker's bid cost as well as a 15% contingency and the net HST. And within the budget, there's a line item for $1.5 million. The project has had multiple components over the last few years, and it also includes monies for future upgrades to the earthen dam. Those will be included in the 5-year capital budget, but we haven't been able to get to every component of the project so far. So the recommendation would be that $425,000 would be carried forward into the next fiscal year to complete this project. And in the report, it also notes that the total estimated debt servicing for this portion of the project is around $32,000. So there's a recommendation with 2 parts. The first one is for the main contract award to Gary Parker Excavating. And the second one is for the contingency amount. It's 15%, which would equate to around 52,000. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Counselors, are there any questions? Counselor Larry Pinch.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm just curious because we said there was a blockage and then it was discovered that it collapsed. So when I think of blockage, I think of something external that has caused the system to fail. When I think of collapse, to me, that's an internal failure. So was it an internal failure, not an external failure? I guess the reason for my question is how do we ensure that whatever caused the blockage doesn't happen again, even with a larger diameter pipe?
Sure. Yes. So through the chair, the blockage was caused by a collapse within the existing control structure. And the earthen dam was constructed in 1898. So the infrastructure is quite old. And I would say we've received what we could expect out of it.
Great, thank you. Mayor Zabian?
Yeah, it's a good point. I know me and Deputy Mayor were looking at it back in August.
Yeah.
and it looked quite old. A lot of wood
Yeah.
was in there, or what appeared to be wood. God knows what it was, but
Didn't realize it was
it's definitely a
1898.
project.
Yeah.
It's definitely a project that's needed. Do you anticipate us using the contingency? Uh, would the engineering not be enough that it's pretty much straightforward, or do we think we'll need some add-ons, or?
So through the chair, it's a question that's hard to answer, but the more simple a project is, the less likely we'll run into unforeseen problems. So the hope is always to stay within the contract award, but the contingency is there in case it's needed.
Counselor Paul Morton.
Or a question for you, Tim. So will this new structure last 130 years with the new materials that they use today?
It's interesting. The plastic pipe and HDPE pipe that's used now, it's not even been around long enough to know what the useful life is, but engineers expect it to be 100+ years.
Okay. Counselor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Tim, I may have missed it, but I just with the series of numbers there, but you talked about 425 being carried forward. That's not in the list of numbers that you have there. So what is that 425 you're talking about carry forward for the 26, 27? What is the purpose of that?
Yes, so the total project costs are 415,000. The carry forward number that I quoted of 425 is basically just rounded up a little bit.
It's the 415.
That's
It's just
correct.
okay. So that's fine. Thank you. And the other question I have is that I recall us having a discussion, I believe that we would have approved, in fact, even part of design work when the roads were being done. I'm going to say back around 21, 22 for work on the earthen dam at that time, but it's still not here in front of council. So am I right that part of this project has been pushed out to this point that we can't push it out any further? It sounds like we need to repair/replace what's the current structure inside the earthen dam. Can you quantify that a bit for me?
Sure. So through the chair, Todd might have a little bit more of the historical context, but my understanding is that the earthen dam as a whole has been looked at by different consultants, and there will be future work required, future upgrades in order to meet the current standards for
Right.
that type of dam. And I think that a few boreholes and other geotech work have been completed, but the diversion pipe is certainly the first priority, and it's necessary in order to ensure that we have enough water going to the treatment plant. And the rest of the upgrades will be shown in the 5-year plan.
Thank you. And I thought I had another question here, but I may be I'm jumping ahead. That's good. Thank you. So earthen dam is future, not long-term. It's, we call it short to medium.
I would say that's accurate.
That's safe. Yeah. Thank you.
Counselor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So 2 questions. One, the 18-inch pipe that's going to go around the dam, not through it. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Okay. The second question is, with the new intake, would we be able to get water out of the lake during a drought like we had this summer without the pump?
So through the chair again, yes, the new intake will be close to the bottom level of the lake, in that kind of narrow finger going towards the earthen dam. So it would only be a few inches above the bottom, and therefore it would be able to still receive water through the pipe even in drought conditions.
That's great. Thank you.
Counselor Bob Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a question for Tim. Tim, when scoring these tenders, just curiosity. I think I know the answer because I think we've discussed this a few times, but noting that all of those, I guess, submissions would really be local vendors on paper. Is there any weight put behind a West Hants applicant? I know there's pricing differences and we can see it on this, or could see it on the screen. Is there any weight put behind that one of the companies were in West Hants versus others as it goes further out? Just when you score in general, not necessarily even just for this project, but in general.
Yep, good question. So through the chair, typically for the consulting services, those are done through an RFP process where there's different criteria that we score. But for our construction tenders, they're based solely on lowest cost, and that's to take any subjectivity out of the equation. And each contractor has to meet the minimum standards that are set forth in the tender documents. And therefore it's lowest cost wins. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Chair. One other question, if I could, through you, Chair, to Tim. And it's a little bit angular to the topic, except it relates to the drought conditions and your comment about having this pipe placed so low along the finger in front of the dam so that we're able to ensure water flows through. One of the items that was identified as a challenge when we dealt with this last September was between what I think was referred to as the middle lake and working its way into this zone where the dam is, and that there was concerns there about a blockage or a change in elevation that basically, I don't want to use the wrong word here, but sort of trapped water in that middle lake that couldn't get its way through. Do we have anything in the works looking at that? It just seems to me that here we're solving an issue right in front of the dam, but there's also that other water backlog, for lack of a better phrase, that do we have that in the works that you can comment on if it's appropriate to ask?
So through the chair, I can comment at a high level. I did have a couple of discussions with the consultant on that idea. And I think that it would be safe to say it would be cost prohibitive for one. So yes, in theory, it could be possible to dredge, but the cost would be, the estimate would be well over $3 million. There would be a lot of environmental concerns, and without a very detailed geotechnical analysis, let's say that you maybe trench through rock, you could actually expose it to fissures or cracks and end up actually losing water. So we would definitely want to be careful about anything like that. And with Operation Make It Rain now in place, for roughly $400,000, the situation that or the concern that you're mentioning should no longer ever come into effect.
Thank you. I appreciate the detail, and I won't, high level, thank you very much. I appreciate the attention on that.
Seeing no other lights, thank you, Project Engineer Buchier. Well, no questions, but council, there are two recommendations if anyone would like to make them. Councillor Bonnie Smith.
Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the award of tender WHRM PW 25-14 Mill Lakes Diversion Pipe to Gary Parker Excavating Limited for the tendered price of $347,599.60 before applicable taxes.
Made by Councillor Bonnie Smith. Is there?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paul Wheaton. So we'll vote on this one first. So Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the award of tender WHR MPW 25-14 Mill Lakes Diversion Pipe to Gary Parker Excavating Limited for the tender price of $347,599.60 before applicable taxes. Clerk Snare, oh, you're ahead of me. Two nays, motion has passed. There is a second one there, Councillor Bonnie Smith.
Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve a construction contingency amount of $52,139.94 before applicable taxes.
Seconded by Councillor Paul Wheaton. So motion is approve a construction contingency amount of 52,139,094 before applicable taxes. And Clerk Snare has it already up. Motion passed, 1 nay. Thank you very much, everyone. And we're going to move on to 8C, Pazant Drive and King Street upgrades, tender award recommendation report, project engineer Boutier. You might as well just stay there.
So the second report is another contract award. This one is for the Pazant Drive and King Street upgrades. This project was also included as a priority in the current year's capital budget. The design work for this project was approved by council in April last year. And the project includes a new road extension of Pazant Drive with a connection to King Street, as well as infrastructure improvements to King Street that were subsequently approved by council in November of last year. The extension of Pazant Drive and connection to King Street will allow for additional development off of Pazant Drive. Also improve traffic flow through that connection to King Street. And replacement of an aged section of the water system, which was, it's around 1883, so very old water main. And it will also allow that portion of the water system to be looped. And there's operational benefits to that. So some of the infrastructure improvements, they're detailed in the report, but it includes construction of the Pazant Drive extension. I talked about the connection with King Street. It includes concrete curb and gutter and new sidewalk. There's also street reconstruction of King Street from between Sunny Hill and Campbell to the former town of Windsor limit. And again, that would also include the new concrete curbs and gutters and sidewalk. The project would include installation of approximately 340 meters of water main and the new service laterals to the property line. It would include 190 meters of sanitary gravity pipe, also with the service laterals to the property line, and about 330 meters of storm pipe. There is currently a development agreement in place for 2 of the adjacent property parcels. The developer, Parsons Green Development, is responsible for this portion of the road construction. And the next slide shows it in a little bit more detail. So the dashed bluish line would represent the private part of the development. So within that development agreement, Parsons Green Development would be responsible to extend Pazant Drive up to where the yellow line starts. And then our project would include that connection to King, as well as the improvements along King Street itself. The design work for this project was completed over the last year. Design Point Engineering is the consultant, and the project was tendered in November and December of last year. We received 3 tenders before the closing deadline for this project. And like always, the submissions were reviewed for mathematical checks and compliance. So the chart on the screen shows the 3 submissions. ITS Construction Incorporated is the low bidder for this project. Their submission was fully compliant with the tender requirements, and they are therefore being recommended to council for award of the project. I did a little bit more research because we haven't received submissions from this company as much as other companies. So they were established in 1996 with a primary focus on the petroleum industry. But over the years, the company has expanded into civil construction. ITS is affiliated with the NCL Group of Companies Incorporated, which are one of Cape Breton's heaviest civil contractors. And they have experience with similar projects across the province, and they use their own workforce for all aspects of the work, with the exception of paving. Within the past year, ITS completed the Summer Street renewal project for the village of Canning. So I talked to the clerk treasurer there, and they had a really good experience with that contractor. And they also completed a major box culvert replacement for the town of Wolfville. The report also outlines that the design and tender phase services were awarded by council to Design Point Engineering and Surveying, and the design part of it was 96,000. So Design Point has submitted a cost proposal for the construction phase engineering services, and that totals $91,524. So there's a whole list of bullet points for what that entails, but some of the high level would be shop drawing approvals, inspection support, construction administration support, and materials testing. So those are some of the main components on the consulting side. In terms of the financial impact, there's a detailed chart also taken from the report. So it breaks the project costs into different components. So there's road rehabilitation, water system, sanitary system, and sidewalk construction. But basically all of those categories add up to ITS's tendered cost. Then there's the $91,000 that I just spoke about for the consultant for their services during construction. There's a 15% project contingency and the net HST. So all of it adds up to $5,212,423. And the budget for this project was just over 6 million. So it's actually good news that there seems to be more competition and better pricing than in the past. So it's a trend that we were hoping to start to see, and hopefully that continues. The chart also shows the project funding sources, totaling the same amount as the project costs. So for this recommendation, there's 3 parts. The first one would be for the main contract award. The second one is for the engineering services to Design Point, and then the last one would be for the construction contingency amount. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Opening council. Okay, Councillor Paul Wheaton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you to Engineer Boder. So with this recommendation, Engineer, when it's all finished, we're going to be able to drive a car on it. That's it. We're going to be able to drive through Payzant to King. This will be a complete project.
So through the chair, once the private developers portion is also complete, and within the DA, there's requirements that within a certain time frame of either one starting the project, the other has to also do their portion. And I did talk to the developer, Noel, and he's planning to do the work this summer as well. So the deadline is the end of November for substantial completion, and certainly by that point, I would expect a through fair.
Okay, Councillor Paul or Morton.
Through you, Tim, or Chair. Where it's a new road construction, is there any opportunity to get provincial money, federal money for a third, and a third? Is that just on existing roads, replacing water pipes?
So perhaps Carly would want to speak more on the budget side of it. within the proposed budget, I think it indicated 50% external funding. There are actually less programs available right now than we would have hoped. So we applied for the grid program for the third process train last fall. And in the new year, we're hoping for a new program through, the acronym is CHIF. It's related to housing. But for a project like this, sometimes it is harder to find external funding, and to date, there has been no programs available.
Counselor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess my question is around the same topic, but is it because it's new construction, like a new road, and not a rehabilitation of a road, that we can't get the third-party funding?
I would say more so than the type of project. It's just the availability of any funding programs right now.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Larry Pinch.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This may be a question for Director O'Shaw. Because I noticed multiple times in this document, it is suggesting that this could affect other capital projects and looking at our reserves. And I guess I just kind of want a little bit more of an explanation, because we don't typically see like a warning, and it kind of feels like a warning a couple of times through the document.
So certainly, and I do believe most of the warning that comes in from the financial side is in the financial section. However, this has been a priority of council. We've been kind of building towards this. So it's really basically up to council if this is a priority, if they want to proceed. We had budgeted for external funding. External funding wasn't available, so it has increased our amount in debt servicing. We kept all of our funding relatively the same from the reserves based on where we were anticipating items to come from. So for example, our capital reserve was paying for all of the design and the engineering and project management. So whatever was associated with that still stayed within that category of that reserve. Same with sidewalks and curbs, all that's funded through CCBF. So we do have a little bit of external funding, just not as much as we were hoping for. So we have CCBF on our sidewalks, and we have post-consolidation to help with some of the increase in cost.
Mayor Zabian.
Yeah, I was just gonna highlight the same things, just it's a substantial amount of more borrowing, which will increase our debt financing and debt servicing. I was really hoping for the CHIF to come into effect here, but it's unfortunate.
Counselor Bonnie Smith.
I had two questions through your chair. You mentioned something about the water system being looped. What exactly does that mean?
So through the chair, basically in some areas, there might be a dead end in the water system, but through this project, different kind of fingers of water pipes will be able to connect together, and therefore it allows for the system to be looped and to flow freely, and basically to be able to, we call it multi-directional flow. So if there's a break in one area, it can come from the other side when it's looped.
Okay, thanks. I understand that. And the other question, if I can, you also mentioned that the developer Parsons is responsible for extending Pizant Drive, that portion there. Does that mean like they build it, they pave it, and then they turn it over to the municipality when it's done?
Yes, that would be correct. So they would build it to our municipal specs, which would basically be the same standard as our portion of the work.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? Do you know roughly what something like that costs for that section of road? Like what the developer would have to spend to build that section of road? Just curious.
I don't have an exact number. I did talk to Noel, and I think that his portion would be somewhere in the $1 to $2 million range. Like it completely depends on the length and the complexity and the amount of pipe and things like that.
Thank you.
Any other, Counselor Larry Pinch?
Thank you.
I
through the
did
chair.
have, just before you go, I did have other lights I saw. You're good? Okay. Go ahead, Counselor Larry Pinch.
Thank you through your chair. Out of curiosity, I know you've spoken to Noel and he seems like he wants to move forward with it, which is fantastic. They have their development agreement. What happens if I don't know, he moves out of the country tomorrow and relinquishes the development agreement and we've done our portion that we're going to start this summer? Would we then, it's not useful to us unless we have that connection in the middle, right? Across those. Okay.
It's a good question. I would assume that in the development agreement that there would be clauses that would speak to, you know, if that were to happen, but Carrie might have some more definite information. No.
No, it's okay. I was just curious because I know some people have gotten development agreements, they get it, and they don't, it doesn't happen often, but they don't follow through with what they had intended. So then we would kind of be, I guess, stuck because you'd have one on either side and nothing in the middle, but okay.
It does highlight the importance of having the right clauses in development agreements to protect ourselves.
Counselor, CAO, did you?
It was a specific piece that we put in the development agreement that he must do it at the same time that we are. So if he decided to not, it's not so much of when he's going to build his buildings, it's when we build our road, he does it at the same time. So it's more of a legal question if he doesn't versus a market one, if he decides not to build. When he builds his apartment building is to be determined, but the road construction is at the same time that we are.
Okay, that makes sense. Just because I had heard like he wants to do it, but I didn't realize the clause specifically stated that he has to do it when we do ours. So thank you.
Counselor Ivy?
Thank you, Chair. And through you to Director Rashawn, same question in a fairly similar way. Just the comment that I'll pull from the document is if council chooses to proceed with this project, it may reduce future affordability of other capital decisions. And I guess the question, maybe it's not, maybe it's Engineer Booter, I'm not sure, but is that specific? Are there projects that we see coming down the line that will, that their affordability will be at risk in concert with this one? I know we're not in a budget discussion, but it's all.
We're not in a budget discussion, but we're heading into, of course, budget discussions here and hopefully the end of March. And what we're seeing is again, and luckily with this one, we came in under what we were anticipating, and that shows a good sign. We'll see if the trends continue. But traditionally what we've seen over the last few years is our capital renewal projects have come in higher than our Class D estimates. And with that, with the unavailability of funding, because we do budget within our capital budget for third-party funding, with less funding available, and we're seeing that from federally, we're seeing that provincially, less spending, that we will have to take on more of the cost, which means it will impact the affordability. So when we enter into our capital budget deliberations this year, it could impact your decisions deciding on that. So that's why when I say pending council's priority, I know this one's been in discussion for a long time. It could just impact your flexibility in capital budget deliberations and what year certain projects get done.
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up if I could, and I know there's the notation in here that the ratios for debt servicing is year end and so on. For some reason, I thought I'd seen a 9% number. It's not in this document. I just did a search to see if I could reference it. Maybe it's some other document. Do you have any sense as to where we currently float? If I could ask that.
I don't have it right in front of me, but I
No.
could dig it out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I do have one or two. So we're under budget by approximately 800,000 is how I read that. And the alternative, it was not recommended that we cancel this tender. But I have a question on the flip side. If you spoke to the developer and he's planning to maybe put that piece of his road in this summer is what you're saying. So if he puts his in and this doesn't go through, then his goes nowhere. He doesn't have to do it, but if he hasn't planned to do it, it could just stop where he puts his in.
So my understanding is that it's like an integrated approach, and if we were to do our portion first, it would trigger the private developer to start theirs, but also vice versa. So I believe that in the development agreement, we would be required to do our portion if the private developer does theirs.
So if he starts this summer and we don't put this through,
Again, I would suggest
Legal.
that would be more of a legal question.
no, just, that's fine. I just curious. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing no lights, there's no more questions, so you can stay there if you want. I won't direct anymore. I know you're on for the next one as well. Director Rashawn, did you have a?
I just, thank you, your worship. I'm just answering Councillor Ivy's question. It just took me a minute to
Okay,
dig it
no
out.
problem.
So at the end of 2024, we were sitting at 6.8%. However, that's assuming that only looks at what we've actually borrowed at the end of the year. So through our budget deliberations, if we were to borrow everything that we had within that was estimated, we would be looking at closer to the 9%, which is what you were thinking of. Yeah.
That just as for clarity, you said at the end of 24, did you mean 23, 24? Is that?
Yeah, 23, 24.
Okay, thank you.
Great. No other questions? Seeing none, Councillor Ivy, you're good. You're just,
Yeah.
yep, okay. Thank you very much. So there are 3 recommendations if somebody so wishes to put them on. Councillor Paul Wheaton.
Thank you, Mayor. Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the award of tender WHRMP W25-15 Payzant Drive and King Street upgrades to ITS Construction Incorporated for the tendered price of $4,272,564 before applicable taxes.
Made by Councillor Paul Wheaton. Is there a seconded by Councillor Bonnie Smith? Clerk Snare, do you want to? Oh, sorry, I will read it again. Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the award of tender WHRMPW 25-15 Payzant Drive and King Street upgrades to ITS Construction Inc. for the tender price of $4,272,564 million before applicable taxes. Motion passed. 3 nays, Councillor Larry Pinch, Councillor Paul Morton, and Mayor Zabian. There is another 2 recommendations. Councillor Wheaton.
Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the construction phase engineering services to Design Point Engineering and Surveying Limited for the total price of $91,524 before applicable taxes.
Seconded by Councillor Bonnie Smith. So the second part of this is Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the construction phase engineering services to Design Point Engineering and Surveying Limited for the total price of $91,524 before applicable taxes. Motion passed. 2 nays, Councillor Paul Morton and Councillor Larry Pinch. And the final third part, Councillor Paul Wheaton.
Committee of the Whole recommends the council approve a construction contingency amount of $654,613.20 before applicable taxes.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bonnie Smith. So Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve a construction contingency amount of $654,613.20 before applicable taxes. Motion carried. 3 nays, Councillor Larry Pinch, Councillor Paul Morton, and Mayor Zabian. thank you very much, everyone. Now we will move on to 8D, tendering timeline, Rand Street Services and Street Renewal Recommendation Report. Project engineer, you're almost off the hook.
Thank you, Chair. So for this one, it will just be a verbal report. And I do recognize that there's some overlap in the financial discussion that we've just been having. So Rand Street in Hansport was included as a priority for replacement for the sanitary storm and water infrastructure and street renewal. And that was in year 2 of the 25-26 5-year capital budget. So basically it was anticipating construction in 2026, the upcoming construction season. And the determination was based on the age and condition of the underground services and street service conditions. So the design work for this project was completed over the last year. And as we've been talking about, the tender pricing for the Pizant Drive and King Street upgrades was lower than anticipated. I had discussions with several of the contractors, and they indicate that current market conditions are favorable, with increased competition as contractors seek to secure their first major project for the upcoming construction season. And staff are seeking approval to issue the tender for the Rand Street Services and Street Renewal Project this January, with the intent of bringing a contract award recommendation to council on February 24th. So this would effectively constitute a pre-approval for the 2026-27 capital budget, allowing the municipality to take advantage of the most favorable market conditions for tendering. So again, we're noticing a difference in the tender pricing. And the later into the year that we go, the less competition we seem to have and the higher the pricing. So in terms of the financial implications, Rand Street had design allocated in our current capital budget, and the construction was outlined in year 2. So that's why this report is being brought, because technically we don't have an approved capital budget for the construction, even though the construction was anticipated to happen this construction year. So I guess I'll leave it at that and see if there's any questions. The recommendation is included in the report, and it would be that the Rand Street Services and Street Renewal Project be tendered in January 2026 with the intent of bringing a contract award recommendation to council on February 24th. So it wouldn't be approving the project, but it would be approving staff to go to tender.
Okay. Any questions for project engineer Boucher? Counselor Paul Morton.
So when we talked about this before last fall or whenever it was, we were looking at, I mentioned about going up Bishopville Road on the right-hand side into the ditch. Has that been looked at as well with this project or not? For the condition of the ditch that was in and things that are, there's some kind of grate there that somebody put in 252 years ago when they built the dam, right? Leftover piece. So it's blocking stuff. Have anybody looked at that ditch part of it as well? Because it floods up there quite well when it rains.
So I'm just trying to get my bearings. Is Bishopville Road is connected to Rand. So there would be a small portion where it meets Rand that would have been included in this tender.
Okay. Seeing no other lights on for, oh, Counselor Ivy.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question that it may end up getting into the finance side, but depending on what comes back on this, this is just to be able to go to tender. But what's the funding envelope on this look like? Given that in the previous one we saw the debt component, we came in under budget, but the debt component increased substantially. What's the?
So as Carly looks that up, I should have mentioned that in the current year's budget, the estimate for construction was 6.7 million. And after finishing the tender drawings, we received a Class A cost estimate for 6.03 million. And based on the results of our Pheasant Drive contract, if we tender it during favorable conditions, the hope would be to be in the, the high fours or low fives.
Thank you. That's helpful to hear. If it proves true. And not that I'm suggesting it wouldn't be, you get my meaning.
So thank you for the question, Councillor Ivy. In the capital budget year 2, as project engineer Boder's mentioned, we have the 6.7 in there. And we do have some provincial funding that we have kind of allocated as like what we anticipate or what we would hope to get through other grants. So again, if we were to go to tender now, we might get more favorable costing, which then might change your guys' decision as you're going through your capital budgeting. And of course, I'll be looking at that too as I'm preparing up this year to make sure I'm recommending and everything's affordable. What I will say, just to add to the municipal engineer's comments, is just that there's no risk of us putting out a tender because we also don't have to proceed with a tender. So it just kind of locks in that cost. There's still the approval processes that are going to happen. There's still the capital budget piece that's going to happen. Yeah. So potentially 2 more approvals. And typical with most of our tenders, we have 60-day usually as a recommended expiry. So just kind of keeping that in mind, there's not a lot of risk to pre-approving a tender issuance because we don't have to proceed with it.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for that.
Mayor Zabian?
Yeah, just to confirm with Engineer Boder, portions of Bishopville Road and Faulkner Drive, I think, are part of that project. So it should resolve a lot of the flooding that residents experience in there with old infrastructure and just how it's set up. So
yes, I can confirm the Faulkner Drive portion as well.
Perfect. No more lights. So thank you, Project Engineer Boder. There is a recommendation there, Council, if anyone wishes to make it. Councillor Larry Pinch.
Committee of the Whole recommends that the Rand Street Services and Street Renewal Project be tendered in January 2026 with the intent of bringing a contract award recommendation to Council on February 24th, 2026.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paul Morton. So, Committee of the Whole recommends that the Rand Street Services and Street Renewal Project be tendered in January 2026 with the intent of bringing a contract award recommendation to Council on February 24th, 2026 is the motion we will be voting on. Clerk Snare, you're ahead of me again. Motion passed. 2 nays, Councillor Yanish and Councillor McLean. So council, it is 8:03. We normally take a 10, 12-minute break. So we will break for, we'll say 12 minutes, come back a quarter after. Okay, so everyone at home, we will be back in 12 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. It's 8:17, so we're going to start with the second half of our committee of the whole, and we're at 9 with reports, and we're going to turn it over to CAO Mark Phillips for your activity update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Felt like a bit of a short month with the window of the holiday season in there, but we'll hit some high points. Of course, the meetings that you participated in, reminder, we have a strategy session up and coming on the 17th to help guide principles and priorities of council moving forward. Some meetings that had happened. We had a visit from representatives from the GFL Arena in Newport, just discussing their capital plan and their schedule for construction out there. So kind of more of an update and a question around just funding. We had a DEI CC meeting last evening, property taxation discussion ongoingly with the developer and the crossing, and the organizational review. So the organizational review is started, we'll say, and we will have a timeline more specific ironed out here as we just forwarded the agreement today for the execution of the work. So that work is happening over the coming months, and we're anticipating the conclusion. It'll be done in stages, but the total project we hope will be completed near the end of May. But of course, there'll be incremental steps along the way. Community development, just lots going on in that world. We had an operational meeting just with respect to the booking of facilities and the billing of facilities, and just trying to make the process a bit more streamlined for the users, the billing process, and then ultimately the payment of the invoice. So I think we've made some inroads on some outstanding accounts, as well as refined our process moving forward, because I know it's very much an operational thing, but I think some of you folks do hear from some of the users with respect to just payment and communication and so forth. So we've been working on ongoingly improving that part of our process. The planning department remains busy, of course. We did have some meetings over the holidays with respect to the exhibition and some of the renovations happening in the arena, to help them navigate forward and make some decisions around some of their priorities. So I feel like that was productive. An update for council in the courthouse. The courthouse is out there now on the market for sale. It has been for some time now. And just a confirmation that on February 27th is the deadline. So anyone and any party interested in putting a proposal forward are asked to do so, and they'll all culminate on that February 27th date, which I'm not sure what day that is. And then we would expect for council to see some of those proposals in March. Now, those will be dealt with in camera as you're evaluating proposals and offers and that type of thing. But we'll say the Realtor has had a number of parties walk through the building and the site, and hopefully they all translate into proposals for your consideration. Lots of discussion with the Valley Regional Enterprise Network around tourism and marketing, as you've experienced here tonight. And then we have a Police Advisory Board that, the strategy workshop attended by some citizen residents or citizen members on January 7th at the Old Orchard Inn, along with other municipalities in the Valley, just create a framework around strategic planning and how the Police Advisory Board can help guide the RCMP and the service that they provide to us, and the priorities that eventually PAB and council were set for the community. Fire Services Director as well, that position is out there as well, and we have a deadline for January 26th for those applications. So again, we're very encouraged to date by the number of applications we receive. As we know, this is a priority of council and the fire service. And I'll say council, there's always, talk on the street, so to speak. And generally, I think this direction from council has been warmly received. And most of the comments I receive are positive in nature, that they see this as a benefit. There will always be challenges, of course, but generally the first reaction is one that people share with us. Something I didn't include in the report, apologies, just a quick update on the warming center, or the warming center at the pool. And speaking with Leslie today, of course, from Caremongers, they are still working through the application process with the province on that funding. I think we would identify the most obvious hurdle or item yet to be dealt with is the insurance. And they're trying to find companies or insurance providers that will give them a quote, and then ultimately make that submission to the province for their consideration for that piece of it. My understanding is that that is one of the remaining pieces. And I know from speaking to the provincial representative on the other side, although not our application council, that they're prepared to support that, but that work has to be done and those proposals have to be received and then, of course, submitted. As far as the warming center, it is now up and operational 7 days a week. Again, I did remind the representative today that council's commitment is limited to December and January, so that they're aware of that. And there is, I think, an understanding and appreciation of the urgency to get this final piece executed. So hopefully the funding gets confirmed and off they go. To date, it has been primarily a volunteer effort. As far as municipal costs, I don't think we have I don't know if you should mention the number of people, but we have a small percentage, right? A smaller percentage of the people working at the warming center is paid versus volunteer. So I think they're being mindful of the uncertainty of funding, but also leveraging, the goodwill of the community, and majority of the folks there are volunteering, and the hours are as advertised, 7 days a week. And I think the use is comparable to what the use was last year, as far as the number of people there on a regular basis. The last piece I would add is just the audit process, and Councillor Rochon is coming up here in a bit to give you some other financial updates. And I know we have the benefit of having an audit committee invite for the first week of February. I think it's the 3rd or the 4th. So we can expect to see the MNP water audit, which is basically completed with some final edits and comments back to the vendor so that they can finalize that document so that it is completed and prepared for the February audit committee meeting. And we are applying pressure to our municipal auditor to finalize the statements for that timeline as well. But there is still some remaining work to be done on that municipal side. And again, Director Rochon may be able to provide you some additional comments, but we are beyond not just optimistic. We feel we will have those documents for the audit committee in that first week of February for the review, because it has been some time and there has been a time lag, 2 items. So those will be some of my comments, along with the Christmas break, which for me was probably closer to 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO. Is there any questions on our CAO information report? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Chair. Through you to CAO, just the one item that wasn't there, and maybe just to touch on it, but we've seen planning put out initial draft versions of the consolidated documents in the last week to 10 days publicly, for the public. And I know that we'd had a preview before Christmas, but timing, I guess, with that is what I want to ask about. And I've seen the deadline dates for some of the timing, and as we know, those documents are not an easy read for even those of us that sit around this table on a regular basis to work through the detail of planning and terms and all that sort of a thing. And it's the ability, I think, I do have a question. But the point being is that it's really important at this stage, having done all the work, all the time invested to get us to this point, to make sure that we do this validation, that we heard what they said and we heard it correctly. From a timing standpoint, can you comment on that as to where we're at, or our ability to be able to get as much out of this as we can with this shot of it versus?
Director Fougere is going to answer that question for you.
So
Yeah.
you got what I was asking, correct, Director Fougere?
I believe so,
Yeah.
through you, Chair. So as you mentioned, the documents have been shared kind of with some of our external stakeholders. some agencies and other of those folks. And we're kind of working one-on-one with a few of them to have meetings to kind of discuss their feedback. And throughout the month of January, they are now available to the public as well for comment, and they can stay online for longer than what we've originally anticipated if there is more time needed. Right now, we don't have a set date on when we want to bring these forward for approval. It'll really depend on the feedback that we received from all of the groups that we've been engaging with, as well as kind of our own internal working groups and other staff and other departments. But likely sometime in the spring, it would be brought forward for consideration. And that would also include the public hearing. So that would be another opportunity to provide feedback and input from the public.
Thank you. And so for like the planning committee, and so do we anticipate those being put in front of planning for comment specifically, or is that, are we past that process, or can you?
So it'll be brought forward to the Planning Advisory Committee as part of the regular approval process. So it'll be brought forward for a recommendation.
Okay. And so, yeah, so to my preamble, I guess all I would say is that I think we're at a stage now where it's the first time as part of this process, we're actually getting to see the detail in the documents of what is taken in the consolidation of one is, putting them together and sorting through all of that. And that in of itself is a full major exercise just to try and get everything aligned that way. But based on the feedback that we received, it's my opinion that we're at a stage now where we really want to be cognizant that we've heard what people said and the way that they said it, and that we work through that detail, at this stage, I think is important. And so I won't say anything more than that, but if we have time crunch or financial crunch based on budget that we allocated for it, that now is the time that I'd like to be hearing about that if we need to adjust something, I guess, from an input standpoint. So anyways, thank you for the.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Larry Pinch.
Through you, it was a quick question for Director Fouchier.
She's gonna come back.
Sorry. So it will then include like the survey, because we did a survey, right? That went out. I just want to make sure I'm remembering correctly. And then that will include the survey responses, and then anything that you guys receive will be summarized like it is in, yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah, just to, so we haven't done a survey for this round of engagement, but the previous rounds of engagement have been summarized all in what we heard reports. So that'll all be brought forward. And then any comments, written or verbal comments or one-on-one meetings that we might have, and we record the feedback through there, that will also be provided to the planning committee and council as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Seeing no other lights, thank you, CAO. And we'll move along to reports, general operating. So Director Rashan, I think you're going to handle our next three. So.
Thank you, Worship. So reviewing our general operating, these have been circulated within your package. We, as anticipated, if everything incurred evenly, we'd be at about 58.3% of what our budget is. Knowing that everything doesn't occur evenly over the year, we do see, of course, that about 85% of our revenue has been collected up to this point. If we look at the far column there, which makes sense because a lot of our revenue is generated through taxes, and that's billed in August. So that's the kind of example that you can use when you're kind of explaining that percentage variance. So we're a little below on our expense side. Again, to be expected, our big cost drivers usually are winter time. And so, because we're using more power, the ice plants are operating, we have plowing and salting. There's just a lot going on in winter time for all the departments. So we're at about 47.3%. We're projecting a surplus on the general operating side of 569,182. Changes basically since the last projections. Just to highlight again, we had our first quarter in the sewer revenue. We now have 2 quarters to base our projections on. We still haven't seen how the mandatory conservation has impacted the rates, but based on the first 2 quarters, We've updated our projections. D transfer tax again is projecting higher, so we're going to keep an eye on that for the fall and winter. But it is also coming in a lot higher. And then, of course, we have transfers from our other local governments because we received more grant funding for operating purposes. And then we also see other revenue projecting higher just due to outstanding balances, which has increased our interest and penalties. Right now on the expenses side, the biggest variance is relating to transportation, and this is due to a number of factors. So the addition of dial-a-ride is one, increases in insurance is another, and then just higher costs for road repairs and maintenance and tree removal is what we're seeing in the GLs. I'm sure Director Richard could speak to any questions, but that is the general operating. Happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions on general operating? Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, through you to Director Rashawn. Director Rashawn, just a couple here, and one of them will sort of overlap into water because it's related to sewer and sewer connected to water, and that those readings, one feeds the other, if I'm saying that correctly, that for consumption numbers and so on. So with this, we've got an October 31st date, and I'm curious if sewer, I don't believe, would be like to the October 31st. It's going to the last read that we would have done on meters the first week of September-ish or thereabouts.
Yeah, that was billed in October.
Right.
Yeah.
So we haven't estimated to make sewer to the end of October. It's just purely the first
First two
5
reads.
months.
Yep.
Am I correct? Okay. And same thing with water.
Yep.
Am I correct on that? So thank you for that. Just in my mind and running the math. And then the only other one that I've got here, you touched on key aspects of transportation. I know I ask this regularly, and I don't think it's any different, but on the protective services, is it RCMP driving that less than billed expense?
So the negative 0.6.
Well, it's that the actuals are coming in, they're only at 27%. So
Yeah. When we think we pay out our fire and our RCMP quarterly. Or so we have 4 payments, so this only reflects half.
Right. And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that RCMP is typically, they bill us late.
Yeah, we just received our third quarter.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. No other lights on that, Director Rashawn. We'll move on to water utility operating.
Perfect. So moving into the operating, so again, we were able to update our projections for revenue. So we were able to reduce our anticipated variance on budget for our rate sales. We definitely are seeing still an increase in water purchasing from water haulers. So that's what's driving up that other revenue line. Which again is resulting in slightly higher revenue in total of 1.8%. Our projected expenses have also increased by 12.5%. Again, a lot of this is driven through administration in general, which we talked about due to higher depreciation costs, but we're actually also seeing that a lot of the other costs within that area are projecting a little lower right now. So that's helping keep that down. So it has reduced from the projection before. We also see that transmission and distribution is projecting higher, and this is just due to fuel and maintenance on water main breaks and leak detection. So I know during the water conservation, there was a lot of movement towards the leak detection to try and help conserve water. So that is showing some increased costs there. And then our source of supply is also projecting a little lower right now, and that's just due to watershed road maintenance, but we'll continue to monitor that because again, watershed road maintenance could be impacted by winter conditions as well. So we did notice that in previous years that it did jump up in the last couple quarters of the year. So we're going to just monitor it for right now. Overall, we're seeing a decrease in our overall projected deficit of 164,707 to 554,268. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Ivy.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't mean to repeat my question from before, but just add for additional detail on it. Normally, when I'm talking about water here, it's mostly the rate sales that I'm focused on, right? But within this sheet on revenue, same thing. Is it just two billings that we're showing there, except for fire?
Yep, it's just two billings, and fire gets billed once.
At the end of the year?
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a question around the deficit of 454,000.
Yep.
So if we do hit a deficit at the end of the year, how does that money get recouped?
So this is a great question. So in the rate study, when, for example, they projected a deficit in that, it was coming out of any of the surplus funds that we had accrued previously. So this would then go into that account against any previous year's surplus. Yeah.
And do we have enough in those accounts to cover it?
So with that, we had a little bit of a projected balance in the first year to utilize, but I do believe the second year of the rate study utilized more. I can dig that out for you. But I do believe we're still within the range. I believe they estimated about 550 during the rate study to be withdrawn from that reserve.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on the water utility operating? Seeing no lights, we'll move along to water consumption.
Thank you, Worship. Again, through you, Worship, this was shared previously with Council. We are reflecting our second quarter billing, which does reads from July to September. That would be that quarter billed in October. So you're seeing that there. Anything in the Q3 column is just closed accounts or adjustments that have been made. And we are currently looking at about a 58 variance between the bulk water consumption and the 3 Mile Plains billing, with authorized and accounted for non-revenue water at about 2.7 million imperial gallons. Any questions related to water? I'm happy to.
Counselor Paul Wheaton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To Director Rashawn, through you, the 9,876 in the quarter two there for Wentworth Road, is that what's driving that number so high?
Yep. Just 1 second there. Let me just open up the file. Sorry here. So in that file, we have the monthly reports. I know that that one in particular, I think Public Works was working on. So just give me a second. I'll get the update for you. Yep. So in that, it looks like we are around the same. It must be a quick typo in the report. So I'm just going to follow through the formula here. So it just pulled the Underwood Road meter. So I'll just update that report and give you an updated figure there, Councillor Wheaton. That needs to be 6. And sorry about that. There we go. So we had used on cubic meters and consumption for Underwood Road in the first quarter about 1,260, and that's in cubic meters. And then in quarter two, we used 1,132. So we're slightly lower in our Q2 than we were in our Q1, and that's just a pulling of the wrong cell. So my apologies there.
So on that Wentworth Road meter, what would that number actually be? Not the 9 million, but it would be more in the couple 100,000.
Oh yeah, like just one sec here. I'll get that number for you. So basically what you we just need to convert it to cubic meters, and that is 249,000.
So it's just a typo?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Ivy.
So thank you, Chair. And just in that same ballpark, is it that we've got those numbers? I don't know what's going on with the formula there, but is it that because on the Underwood, it drops down 8.3 million in the second quarter. And then the other one that Councillor Whedon just asked about, Wentworth, is going up close to the, is that what we probably, is that just a reversal of the numbers there, Director Sean? Or is it?
Looks like there's an. Yeah. So that is correct. So that 9.8 is Underwood's. So it's just the wrong cell got pulled forward to the summary.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Director Rashawn, for that. And we will move on. Okay, we're down to 10 correspondence, general correspondence received ledger as of January 9th, 2026. There's one, Minister Moslin, DEM, regarding the end of the water reimbursement program letter in Droughts. And B, correspondence sent as of January 9th. There was none. So we're going to move right along to new business. A is development activity in West Hants Regional Municipality Information Report, Acting Director Fougere.
Thank you, Chair. So this is just an information report to highlight some of the development activity in West Hants Regional Municipality in 2025. Lots of information in the report, so happy to take any questions on anything that's in there.
Great. So we've had the report. So if there's any questions on any of the information that was in it. Acting Director Fougere will take it now. Mayor Xavier?
Just no, not so much a question, but other than just comments that it was a good year development permit value wise, and hopefully that trend does continue. It's kind of a roller coaster the last five or so years, but we're definitely on the uptrend. So just for budget talks in a couple of months, it's good to keep that in the back of your mind. And yeah.
Great. Councillor Ivy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The information that's contained in here actually is really helpful. And even, A, as it relates to consolidation, but even if we looked at data that existed before that, but also for the public and for developers and people looking to invest in the region and so on, to be able to see this. And so I don't know if this report is within the planning area, or if these the charts and the tables that you have here are, but I just think it's really good information that people would appreciate having access to. And it may have come up recently, somebody was trying to track growth within certain areas of our region, like how many people, what are the permits within Windsor and so on, which is a slice of the, and not easily done, I know, but the more that we're able to do that, I think it's a really good thing publicly and for us to see is. So thank you for the detail of it.
Great, very informative. So seeing no other lights, we're going to move right along. You're not going to go anywhere because B is yours. Appointment of Development Officers Recommendation Report.
Yes, thank you again, Chair. So this report is to recommend appointing the Development Officer, William Overholt, who is currently acting as alternate Development Officer, and then as well the Manager of Development Service, or the incoming Manager of Development Services, Derek Robertson, as a fully appointed Development Officer. Any questions? Happy to take them.
Any questions for Acting Director Fougere on the report? No? Oh, Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, just if I could, Chair, through you to the distinction between the roles, development officer, which we know oversees questions on planning and like the development officer. I heard the other phrase you used for the second individual.
The manager of development services.
Right. Distinction on that.
So they will both be able to act in the capacity of a development officer. So it's just a difference of titles. So the manager position was created to fill a vacancy. And this position is just more of a leadership role in that unit of the department concerning development control. So permitting, enforcement, land use bylaw, administration.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no more, did you have another
Yeah,
question?
I'll make the recommendation. But
Okay.
it's similar to our former director of planning, Madeline May. She was eventually appointed development officer as well because we were a little short staffed. So similar and yeah. But I'll make the recommendation. The committee of the whole recommends that council appoint William Overholt and Derek Robertson as development officers effective January 28th, 2026 in accordance with section 243 of the Municipal Government Act.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Larry Pinch. So I'll read it one more time. It is recommended for Committee of the Whole recommends that council appoint William Overholt and Derek Robertson as development officers effective January 28th, 2026 in accordance with section 243 of the Municipal Government Act. And Clerk Snare has that up for a vote. Motion passed, so welcome to William and Derek as development officers. So now we're going to move along to 11C, 2024-25 Hansport Memorial Community Center financial statements. Director Rashan.
Thank you, Worship. So the attached has been circulated. This is a similar report that you would receive every year as part of our area rate. We need to accept their financial statements so that we can release their last payment. So we provided within the bulk of the report just some analysis of their financial statements, but ultimately we're happy to see that their surplus is growing. So they went from 14,000 last year to 98,000 this year. So if there's any questions on the report, I would be happy to answer them, but there is a motion recommended for council.
Thank you, Director Rashan. Is there any questions on the report? Seeing no lights. Thank you for the report. There is a motion there, Council, if you would like to make it. Mayor Zabian?
Yeah, I'll make that chair. Committee of the Whole recommends that council accepts the financial statements provided by Hansport Memorial Community Center, HMCC, and that any 24-25 holdbacks and eligible 24-25 area rate payments be released to HMCC for the purposes of providing services defined in the 25-26 budget.
Seconded by Councillor Paul Morton. So I will read it one more time and then we'll put it up for a vote. That council accepts the financial statements provided by Hansport Memorial Community Center, HMCC, and that any 2024-25 holdbacks and eligible 2024-25 area rate payments be released to HMCC for the purposes of providing services defined in the 2025-26 budget. Clerk Snare, if you'd like to put that up there for vote. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. The last little bit of new business is 11D, a new position, water meter technician recommendation report, Director Richard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So essentially, the report is recommending a new full-time staff, a new FTE. The report does recommend this addition of a water meter technician for the Public Works Department. So there are a few reasons. You may ask, why now, and what are the reasons for the request? Now is a good time to look for someone qualified in this position. There are some seasonal people, some layoffs, so we feel it is good timing. We had some success, numerous applications for a labor position, generated some good applicants. So we're just looking at justifying that position, and along with we are in need of this position. This position essentially would pay for itself. It will be funded 80% through the water utility and 20% through the sewer. So no impact on the general taxes. And I say it will pay for itself because after this person is essentially, that's their dedicated job. Meter reading technician, repairs, replacing meters when they need to be replaced before they're inefficient, identifying some issues within our meters that they may not be billed correctly. Also, it may take some time, our water consumption report. We'd like to, I'm really trying to dive into that and to have a report that can be generated either more on a monthly or even a bi-weekly basis, so we can really nail down and get that information that the council seems to request, along with what staff should be looking at. So the justification for the position is operational efficiency and accuracy. This technician will handle meter reading, installation, maintenance, and troubleshooting, ensuring accurate data collection for billing cycles and reducing errors that lead to revenue loss. Revenue protection and water conservation by identifying leaks, any tampering, any illegal connections. The technician will help reduce that non-revenue water. So doing that on a consistent basis. It also improve system integrity by doing that. Customer service and compliance. The role does provide direct support to customers, investigate consumptions. We get a lot of people saying, well, why is my water bill higher? This person dedicated and having that consistent back and forth with their customers, I think, is vital, along with just the amount of development, as you've seen in that report. Final bills, when houses sell, there's a huge, owners on our current labor staff just to go out and do that final billing. So having that additional resources is certainly needed. It also helps with our municipal specifications and our bylaws, having in checking people's plumbing, making sure things are in compliance and there's no issues with their standards. And regulatory requirements, compliance with our Safe Drinking Water Act, Canadian Drinking Water Guidelines, and our Nova Scotia Building Plumbing Code requires specialized knowledge and consistent monitoring. So there's just a snapshot of the report. We're just looking for council's blessing to, have this approved before budget. There are some alternatives that, we could wait till the organization review, but Carly and I have been part of that process, the interviews to date, and it's certainly indicating that, this position and along with others may be needed, be the outcome of that organizational review. We just don't want to wait a year. The meters are a cash register for our water utility, so we should be operating them like that important necessity. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer on the report.
Thank you for that, Councillor Larry Pitch.
Thank you, through your chair to Director Richard. Is that a general average salary? Because when I look through the requirements, there's lots of things that say an asset, but technically what we're requiring is a high school diploma and a valid driver's license with a clean driving record. It just seems, if you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. So that would be all in, that number would be salary and benefits and, overtime and everything. So that's an all in number. And certainly that number, the hourly rate, this would be a unionized position. So there'd be a range depending on the qualifications. If we had a Red Seal plumber apply that had experience in this, certainly that hourly rate would be more. But certainly we did do a market scan, and it certainly would meet that market. It's certainly not too low and it's certainly not too high. It's somewhere around the middle. So.
Any other questions for Dr. Richard? Councillor Ivey.
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you to Director Richard. So Todd, thanks for this. And yeah, as you know, over the last couple of years, we've really been boring in on the meter reads, consumption and everything, and even more recently on total water that gets processed through the plant, which follow up with you on that. But so yeah, there is a significant component to this because A, there's the loss of water, and B, as I like the way you put it, the cash register to the water business, which is accurate. The one thing that I'm curious about though is when I went through this, it just seemed to be similar, and maybe I didn't pull up the previous, but we did the CET position a little over a year ago. And so is this not sort of a parallel to that, or am I I didn't pull up the description of the previous, I'm just going by memory that this seemed to be the same sort of thing with water loss, prevention, leakage and the like. Can you?
Sure. Great question. And I see where that may, but this would be a unionized position. This is a person boots on the ground, day to day in the field. Certainly there would be some interaction with their engineering team with the CET position. That was more or less on the stormwater side, helping out with capital projects. This person is going to be focused on meters. So certainly help from a data spreadsheet perspective, analyzing the data would be the CET to help this meter person. But we need that consistent person in the field because we do generate some errors. Right now we rotate through our treatment ops folks that do the meter reading, along with one public works staff that does the manual reads, the walking routes as we call it. So there could be 7 or 8 people on a rotating basis. So something may get picked up, and then that person may not be back to that till for 5 or 6 weeks. So that does, once we, I sat down and analyzed what are the issues. So we need to have that dedicated person with the water meters. So that's what that person will do. And along with, we're still a fairly new organization. We're going through some, some staffing losses. Certainly that generates some issues where we, a lot of historical knowledge. So we need to get that back on a consistent basis. So no, it's not that CET position. This is more focused on meter technician, meter reads. So.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I think I've got 2 more if I could. The 80-20 split between water and sewer, and I guess to my earlier question that water is what sort of drives that sewer number, and so we look at it on a revenue basis. They're in ballparks and so on, but they're not an 80-20. Do you see this mostly a water utility based?
I do.
Costing is
I do. And again, that 80-20 is going to vary, depending on through the year. But the 20% is, when these folks are in looking at, a backflow prevention device. Do they have an illegal connection? The inflow and infiltration. So if we notice a leak, that leak's actually going into the sewer. So to prevent that from happening, it's the sewer component that we're helping. So I thought it was fair. The majority is going to be on the water side, but there's also that sewer component.
Thank you. And then the last question that I have is related to the manual read meters that the folks have to go. I guess they probably go right up and must be touching a device like cell phones or whatever to versus the auto read. Where are we at with the automated meter reads that they can drive down the street? Is that got a ways to go? Or
yeah, to be honest, not where I want to be. So again, another push for this position. There's some incentive. Once we have everything auto read, there's no more walking routes. You drive by and it collects all the analysis. Now with that, there's some troubleshooting because there may be a device that's not working or not communicating. Again, that would be the role of this person. So we want to be in a position where we're all auto reads. So again, if we want to be able to collect our data more frequently, even for just a water consumption report, we should be able to do that quickly within a week, because once everything is auto read, we drive around certain areas. You don't have to drive all the streets. You just hit the high points and all the data comes in. So once we're there, more accurate data, so we can manage our system like it should be. If we don't have all the data, it's hard to manage. So we need to be in that position. So that would help.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Richard? Counselor?
Mine's not a question, mine's a comment.
Okay.
Sitting here listening to all the numbers thrown around tonight, I can't myself support any new people being hired before we see the budget, because there's big numbers coming at us. We got an organizational review happening. I will vote against it tonight because we got organizational review happening. We have budget coming at us. We don't know where we're coming with money. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions for Director Richard? Okay, seeing none, thank you. So there is a motion there. If someone would like to make it.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Counselor.
Recommend it for committee of the whole to recommend to council that approve the addition of one full-time water meter technician position to the Public Works Department staff, complement effective January 2026.
We have a motion. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, second it. Is there any discussion on the motion? Counselor Ivy.
I'll make a comment, I guess, similar to the comments made. It seems to be a high position, a high paying position for what we might perceive to be a meter reading technician. And I don't know what that, what that entails, to be honest with you. It's not a job I've had in my career, and so I do have concerns about that from a budgetary standpoint on the amount that we're looking to allocate. I do know, though, that we have spent a lot of time in working through the water utilities over the course of the last 2 years. I never thought I would have such a relationship with water as I have here. And so, I don't know what to be certain about on this, quite frankly. I do agree. We've got budget matters coming at us that are concerning. And even tonight, we've got the cautions on capital, which also, though, has effects on operating revenue. And so timing is what it is, I guess.
Counselor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as enticing as it is a position, I would rather wait until the operational review is completed.
Counselor Remy.
Yeah, I guess I'm just repeating the similar comments. I think that just given we're in the middle of that review, but also, the fact that this position is going to be funded out of the water or however the breakdown was, and literally at the session on your guys' community session the other day had to do with water, and people wanted an explanation of where their money was going and those types of things. So as much as I appreciate the role that this person would play in giving us information and detecting those things, I think if we were at the full capacity and able to do, anyway, I'm not right now, I think would be my suggestion on that.
I'm at your will. We have a motion on the floor that has been made and seconded. So I will put it to a vote if that is the wish. Counselor Wheaton, you made them. Yep. So Clerk Snare, do you want to put that to a vote, please? The motion has been defeated. There was one for Counselor Wheaton. Okay. So we'll be moving on to next to public comment period. So we have one person in the public who's waited all evening. So Cody, if you want to come up and state your name, and as you know, you can speak about something that was on the agenda. We'll allow you 5 minutes or so, and no one can answer any comments or questions. No questions. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
My name is Cody Sanford. My comments are focused on the Valley Run presentation and the marketing levy. And I appreciate all the time that council people did take to ask the questions that they've been asking. I think there's a lot of good communication and discussion going on about it, which is great. And I appreciate you guys for that. It was just about 2 years ago, it's fall 2023. There was talk about regulating short-term rentals, yes or no. And you guys held a public engagement session before you voted not to regulate. And I don't believe there was anybody here that was present there, but if anybody was, they would corroborate what I'm saying. I think I remember that. Yeah, Abe was there now. But regardless, there was about 60 plus people there. It was a packed house, and people from Hants County were upset, and they did not want to regulate whatsoever. They made their voices known. There was over like I say, 60 owners of short-term rentals in Hants County that showed up there. And they weren't happy. And council in turn heard those voices and voted not to regulate short-term rentals. I view this as a form of regulation from my perspective. I do understand that some council people are newly elected and weren't around during those times and didn't get an opportunity to vote on that. But that's how that situation played out. Airbnb and VRBO, which we're a part of, already place massive ads when you're watching cable television on large networks, when you're watching Netflix or Crave or Amazon or whatever it is. You'll see commercials for the Annapolis Valley. You'll see huge ads for visiting Nova Scotia. And as Airbnb and short-term rental owners, we already pay up to 45% of a night's stay in marketing levies towards Airbnb for them to do things like this with, in addition to other taxes and so on and so forth. There's already huge burden against us. So when we, and for example, for one of our properties in a prime season for a night, it's a huge house right on the in Kemp Shore. It's a beautiful property that we bought. It was a family home of mine, and that was my way of getting it back into my family, was to buy it, to rent it, because I couldn't afford the mortgage on it without doing something like this. So we bought this for that purpose. In prime season during the summer, we charge about $450 a night. Airbnb charges $800 a night for that. So we don't get that $350. That goes to these things of this nature. So I know when it's being presented that 3%, it's like, oh, 3%, that's not much, but it's 3% for us on top of 45%, right? It's not just 3%. So what I would love to see happen is some sort of engagement like what happened before, to where you folks are engaging with the owners of these short-term rentals, which make up a vast majority of our bedrooms available. I think the Super 8's fantastic and it's great to have, but it does not make up the majority of bedrooms that are available to rent in Hants County. So I don't believe that they should have a larger voice, nor do I believe that Martok should have a voice on this when they, I think it's great they want to build accommodations, but they don't have accommodations right now. We do. And we're the ones that will be directly affected by this. So my caution to you folks is that I think if you spoke like I have to other short-term rental owners who make up a majority of the available stays in Hants County, they will be opposed to this. They do not want another tax. And that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cody. Seeing there's no one else here, we're going to move on to 13 in camera. There is none. So our next meeting date will be January 27th at 6 p.m. for our council meeting. So that is it. Have a good night and safe travels home.